Yes.
What is this called?
This is a memorandum.
Project Management Associates.
Okay.
I'm going to quickly walk through this memorandum. Obviously, you have a copy to read at your leisure. The purpose of this memorandum, Attorney Cava asked me to take a look at there's an EPA guidance document that's been brought to the Commission's attention by comments and testimony from other folks. It also was brought to all of our attention by the city's traffic engineer, and he's raised some questions, and he's referred to that guidance document. So at the request of Mr. Cava and on behalf of the applicant, I took a look at that document, and I've generated some review comments. And first of all, I want to point out that the EPA guidance document is for a different purpose. It's for a different kind of facility. It starts out, and by its own terms, in the very first sentence, it says it is for a transfer station that's handling municipal solid waste in the context of a community's total waste management plan. And so as we know from our conversations in the course of this application's review, municipal solid waste is it's the material most of us put out at the curb, not the recyclables, but it's the other material. It's collected from commercial businesses, and it's the rubbish part. Also, this facility, though, will handle construction and demolition debris, which is mentioned in the document, the EPA document, which I think is in the record, but it is not a focus of the report. So also it's for municipal planning purposes, and if you were to look at that document, you would readily realize that it's speaking to a municipality and it's speaking to a municipality's efforts. So I'm trying to provide some context for the balance of my review comments. One of the issues that was raised here before the Commission and also by the traffic engineer is there's a discussion in EPA's document about a representative 500 ton per day facility, which is what we're talking, in terms of capacity, what we're talking about here tonight. And in the memorandum, I've simply copied, and I'm trying to give EPA all the credit for it, but they present their building plan and their building footprint for a main transfer station building. And the plan is presented here. It's also, again, in the memorandum. And the first thing that you can see on the plan is you can see some big differences, first of all, from the facility that the Commission has been considering in this application. First of all, there's a very large, they call it a tipping floor, but what really is, it's a vehicle maneuvering area just for residents. And in addition to that, there is a large area which they call a tipping floor, but it's not what we would consider to be a tipping floor in the industry typical practices for commercial vehicles, which is on the left side. And then they have in the center of this simplified facility, which is, to use their term, they have a waste pit, which is 6 feet below the main tipping floor. A couple of comments on this facility. I've not seen any facility that contains features like this. And there's nothing in Connecticut with some of the features, and I'll explain to them, and I think you can readily see why. First of all, municipalities don't spend the money to build a building envelope to handle residential cars delivering bags of refuse. Municipalities, every single transfer station, and I've seen a large number of the state's transfer stations, those that take residents have outside areas where residents would either, it's a wholly outside area where residents drive up and put their recyclables and whatever trash or whatever materials they're bringing to the station and into bins, or in a few cases, there are areas where residents will park outside next to a building, walk in, put their bag into a hopper inside a building. Darien and some of the Bridgeport transfer stations have that feature. but I think you'd have to have EPA's budget to build before a community made the decision to build a wholly enclosed area for residents, such as what this plan shows. Also, another unusual feature is this waste pit, and the waste pit with a single preload compactor, which is shown here on this line. Now, preload compactors, it is a feature that's used in the industry. It is in some locations. There are none in Connecticut. I think it's an unusual design from a couple of standpoints. First of all, the waste pit, once it's an MSW facility, is designed to handle a single waste stream, just MSW. And once material gets into that pit, you have one compactor that loads the trailers. Well, if you had a mechanical problem with that compactor, how do you get waste out of that pit? They have some emergency chutes up on the top of the vehicle level, but not down at the lower level. So again, it's a simplified design. It's not intended to be a final design, but I'm looking at I think it's an interesting sort of concept. And again, I've not seen anyone use that. We don't have transfer stations like that here in Connecticut. Another item that I think is interesting about this design is the commercial vehicle area. First of all, there are 11 slots for vehicles to back up to that pit. The Hartford Waste Energy Facility accepts 3,000 tons a day easily, and does not have 11, has much less. Typically 4 or 5 slots would be active on that tip floor. In addition to that, the size of the commercial vehicle area, trucks have to enter a single door here, and then they come in and they back in. Well, you can easily see by looking at that configuration that a single vehicle inside that building backing into a tipping slot is going to interfere with another vehicle entering the building and trying to access it. So I have some questions about how they've made arrangements. Now, we have some large MSW facilities in the state that have slots inside a building, but they have a drive-through arrangement for trucks. The Bridgeport Waste Energy Plant is one that comes to mind. So I'm looking at that, and I think that's an interesting feature that you might not actually want to build. And so what I'm
wondering why you're doing this.
Well, I'm putting some context into both comments of folks who have said, look, this facility doesn't comport with this document that EPA has laid out, and it doesn't. And it doesn't for some of the reasons that I'm talking about here. And I'll just make the last point. From a residential standpoint, you've got a residential tipping floor for trash, but then in the document on the site plan, in a way separate area, they have a recycling area. So a resident coming in has got to come inside the building to get rid of their trash, but their recyclables, they've got to go to a separate area for recyclables. From my standpoint, I think to maximize recycling, you want to have one-stop service where it's convenient for residents. Anyway, what I'm talking about here is the fact that EPA's put out a guidance document here. They don't permit transfer stations. EPA doesn't, they don't typically review designs for transfer stations. I think their intent in putting out the document from that standpoint was to try to provide some help and guidance to folks that had not done this before. The traffic engineer and also the comments before the commission also talked about space and space allocation. And in that EPA document, and I think using some of their conceptual thinking that's shown in this drawing, they talk about providing how do we calculate the amount of space that's required to store a day's amount of refuse. And this is a question that you brought up this evening. And EPA is saying that, what you want to do is to have 4,000 square feet of building space plus enough space to put all the trash in there, MSW, piled 6 feet high. Well, the first comment that I'm going to make is that I think that's an odd formula There's no formula like that in regulation. It's not a customary practice in the industry. It's not industry practices here in Connecticut. But, you know, the 6 feet seems odd to me because a roll-off container with construction and demolition debris can be up to 8 feet tall just on the sidewalls. So where do they get the 6 feet from? I don't know where that comes from. You have large payloaders that can easily stack and handle material. We have reinforced concrete sidewalls in this transfer station that are 10 feet tall. You know, what's with the 6 feet? And I'm only guessing that it's because their waste bid is 6 feet below their vehicle level. I'm assuming that that's the case. So I go through the memo. I'm not going to repeat all the calculations. I derive the density, the bulk density for MSW that EPA is using. I think it's okay. A lot of transfer stations compact waste more, and MSW facilities in the state do compact more, but I've used that number in my calculations. DEP, however, gives us a different density for construction and demolition debris. I've given you the footnote. I've given you the number here. That's 660 pounds per cubic yard. EPA's number has 450 pounds per cubic yard for MSW. Using an average stacked height of 10 feet in the building, which I think is quite reasonable for the kind of equipment and the building design and the operation here, I calculate the square footage at about 5,000 feet as required. And you heard earlier testimony, and there is a typo that I've corrected in here, that the size of the tip floor in this building is 7,690, about 7,700 square feet. I'm very comfortable that there's more than enough space to meet the one-day storage requirement inside the building without using any trucks. That's assuming there isn't a single empty 100-yard truck on site, and we're not using trucks in that calculation. And just by way of comparison, the center, area of the facility is about 2,500 square feet just in the center area, so that you would have about the equivalent of the center area free for basically payloader operation at that point, because once you've reached your one-day storage limitation, you're not operating. You're not receiving any more material at that point. So we feel comfortable that the design meets that. In addition, I've given you, I went out and identified 3 transfer stations, and I got the information on the permitted capacity and the tip floor size. I didn't identify others and then didn't like the answer. I excluded none. I just went to, I found 3 quickly, and I've given you 3 here. Our approach here and our design and how this has been laid out from a sizing and capacity standpoint is very consistent with the industry and operations here in Connecticut. I just want to make a couple of quick points. We also found that the document, again, it's in the record. You can look at the whole document if you like. It's a public document. It does support the features that are in this application. It talks about no long-term waste storage occurs at a transfer station, and waste is quickly consolidated and loaded into a larger vehicle and moved off-site, usually in a matter of hours. That's been our testimony. EPA talks about the benefits of a transfer station, which I'm going to leave to you to read that paragraph as well. EPA makes some calculations in there about traffic, and I'm just noting that in our calculations, in EPA's calculations, they assumed a little bit more waste on the trucks going out, and we assumed less waste outbound and less waste inbound than EPA on average per vehicle. So, which would make our calculations slightly more conservative in terms of number of truck trips. And then EPA gave a long laundry list on 2 pages of things you can do to mitigate impacts of transfer stations, and I think this application stacks up extremely well to that laundry list.
Are there any questions from the commission? Just a couple questions. Mr. Urais.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I thought that some differential was certainly cool.
I apologize for that typo.
When you look at the 7,600 square feet.
Yes, sir.
It's on the second floor. And you're talking about stacking the material 10 feet high, so you require 50/50 for the square footage for the storage. And that leaves you another 2,600 feet to operate in. Now, what's the exterior material for this building? How's it constructed?
The exterior, it's a reinforced concrete wall. What we put around buildings like this are what they call push walls, so that the payloader can push the material up against it, and it's reinforced concrete.
Okay, so it has plenty of resilience to stack up against
It has steel in it, yes.
As well as the doorways. The doors?
The doors, no, there would be the equivalent space of about 2,600 feet, but it wouldn't all be in that center area. I was just showing the amount
I understand.
for payloader maneuvering.
Just conceptually looking at the 5,500 square feet.
You're absolutely correct. You would not be pushing up against the door.
Okay, so
And I didn't mean to represent
the
that.
stack that calculates this is rectangular cube, if you will. 10 feet high, straight walls, but you've got outbound side of the building, which has no walls.
That's correct.
Because you've got trailers that have to back into there. And then you've got doorways that you couldn't stack up against. So you can't really put a 5,000 square foot block in there 10 foot high. It's got some shape to it. And given that it's probably more of a triangle, direct cone, you've got a flat top out there. So if it were triangle, you'd require twice as much space. But let's say you only require a third as much space. How would that affect your number when you take the trash pile and make it the shape that practically would be?
Well, I used an average depth of 10 feet. It's entirely likely, again, this isn't an operating condition. You're looking at a building that has over 25 feet clear height inside the building. The center of in this theoretical calculation, which is what it is, you could easily get 12 or 14 feet in the center, and then that would allow you more than adequate space for any of the slopes on the sides around the edges.
Okay, so you would compensate with it?
Oh, yes, that's correct. Yeah, we're talking about a large loader which has the power and the reach to accomplish that very effectively.
Okay.
Fine. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Mr. Cava, this is the end of your presentation.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I have reserved the right to rebut whatever is said, and I do want to sum up my presentation, but I'm going to defer the summation, with your permission, to after the other people get an opportunity to speak who've come here this evening. With your permission, I'd like to do that. It'll be a brief summation. It won't be long, but I just want to cover the standards that we went through tonight, and then I'll be able to wrap that up.
Fine.
All right. The one thing, though, that I want to say before I turn the floor over is that the principal reason, Mr. Brown, in answer to your question, Mr. Manuel, the principal reason Mr. Brown had to address some of these issues, they were raised by your traffic engineer, and they were raised in areas that are outside of the expertise of the traffic engineer. That's why our traffic engineer.
Oops, hold on a second, I'm sorry.
We have to change the tape.
Go ahead, I'll take the issues.
Yeah, the reason why our traffic engineer didn't address these was not because he didn't want to address them, it's because they're outside of his expertise as a traffic engineer. Traffic engineers are not licensed by the state of Connecticut. Only licensed professional engineers have the ability to do design work and have the ability to raise design questions. And there were questions raised in your traffic report which were beyond that ability. They were into the area of a design professional. That's why we had to have our design professionals address them, and we had to have licensed professional engineers address those questions. So when a traffic report goes beyond, we had to bring in someone that had the expertise to answer in order to do that. And at this point, I'm going to step back and allow you to hear from other people.
Thank you. Now, is there anybody else that is here to speak in favor of this? No.
Ed, do it one more time. Do it 3 times.
All right, 3 calls for another call for anybody who's here wishing to speak in favor of this application. Hearing none, I will ask one more time, is anybody here to speak in favor? Hearing none, I will turn the floor with Ms. Eminger, who has a letter that she wishes to read into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the start of the public hearing, we received a letter from the Community Action Committee of Danbury dated January 30th, 2008, that I will read into the record.
Thank you.
Community Action Committee of Danbury, known as CACD, is an anti-poverty agency dedicated to the task of eradicating poverty in the greater Danbury area. Community Action Committee of Danbury has joined the state of Connecticut and other community action agencies around the state and country on the issue of eliminating child poverty by 2014. Community Action Committee of Danbury would ask the City of Danbury to reject the application of the third transfer station in the City of Danbury to be located near a low-income and supportive housing for the following reason. Number 1, there are no positive advantages to the residents of Eden Drive or a general area. A, there are well-documented health risks to residents living near waste facilities, particularly the young and the elderly. Let's not have our children and our elders bear the cost with 1, increased incidence of asthma and other respiratory and breathing diseases, 2, learning disabilities, 3, cancer. Letter 1B. This could cost taxpayers more for increased health care costs for low-income residents living near the proposed station. C, employers would see a loss in productivity due to time taken off work due to sick time. And D, furthermore, children near the transfer station would stay inside more due to the odor that will come from the transfer station, will not play at the playground or on the basketball court. CACD is working towards eliminating child poverty. One of the things that affect children in poverty is the direct and indirect cost of health care. Should the transfer station be approved, this decision would counteract the state of Connecticut and CACD's agenda towards the elimination of child poverty. Signed by Bobby Poole, Executive Director, and Glenda Armstrong, President. Thank you.
Gentlemen. Now,
Yes, I'm sorry, exhibit.
Exhibit X.
Thank you.
Now, is anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? Now, there are a number of people here. Is there somebody here from the Danbury Housing Authority who has not appeared before?
For the record, Attorney Down should follow.
Would you please come forward? I'll give you a chance to speak first. I know you represent a lot of people.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Attorney Down should follow for the Housing Authority. I'm currently the chairman of the Housing Authority. We would like some opportunity to speak on this application. I do want to defer at this point to some parents of one of our areas that have children here tonight. It's late, the hour's late. I want to defer to the people who brought their children to let them speak before
Fine.
my long-winded,
Fine.
short-winded discussion.
Please state your name to the and address the council.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Omar Polanco. I'm one of the residents of Eden Drive. Pretty much we're here to oppose to the application of the transfer station. Pretty much the main reason we oppose, we're going to be the closest residency to the transfer station, which is going to be affecting more than 100 children that we have in the apartment. Most of them have respiratory problems and they have asthma. So pretty much the transfer station is going to be trying to use a new way of filtering that they even haven't tried out, which pretty much doesn't convince me that it's going to be pretty purified air going around my children's, my fellow neighbors, that probably can get sick or worse the situation that we are right now. Pretty much there we are, everybody over there are working class families. We don't have the resources to support. If some of them get sick or get worse than what they are, probably we won't have the resources to better ourselves. That's why we are there in first place. pretty much we don't need another transportation in Danbury. We already have the AWD up the road, which pretty much doesn't have that much traffic problem because they have the railroad. So why do we need a new transportation right less than a mile close to the other one? If they say that by 2030 we're gonna have an increase in population with more garbage, but why do you want to put a transportation now and then just bring it forward 20 years from now? Another thing I want to address is that the only people affected won't be just Eden Drive, myself and our fellow neighbors, also people from Woodland Hills, Arlington Woods. There's going to be also a school close to the station. I mean, I sure don't want my kids going to a station where trucks are going to be going to, and there's probably going to be some material and toxic waste going around. We just come forward here to somebody, hopefully from the community, can hear, our cry for help, because we don't want a transportation on our backyard close to our children's. Thank you.
Thank you. We won't have applause, please. Now, the next person that you would like to refer to, is there somebody else here that has young children and you would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Alimet Ramos. I live at 149 Eden Drive. I oppose to the transfer station just because I have...
Slow down the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Relax.
I have 7 children which play in the playground. One of my children has an oxygen tank. I have lupus, and the reason why I oppose is because we all did a petition, and not only because of that, my kids are asthmatic as well. And it's not healthy to have all this pollution in the air, and even though they're saying they don't guarantee us 100% that we're not going to have any smell around our area, and we are the closest resident to the station. That's basically it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, is there somebody else who can relate with children that needs to speak? I also would hope that, as you know, you don't need to repeat what everybody else has already said.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well-
Remind that to everybody, gentlemen.
Okay. My name is Cynthia Garcia. I'm a resident at Eden Drive, and I am opposed to the transfer station being put next to my home. A petition was signed by the residents of Eden Drive in opposition of the transfer station. This is our home, and we will be mostly affected by the noise, air quality, and medical problems that may arise. This station will bring rats, roaches, and other pests around our property. Please consider the effect that this transfer station will have on the quality of life for the children of Eden Drive and of the other neighbors in the area. So, yeah, my 2 brothers have asthma, and they always go outside. So, like, I first thought that in the morning when I heard the train, I didn't know it was that, like, transfer station. But now that if this one's closer, I'm guessing the noise will be louder.
Excuse me?
I don't know.
I didn't understand that.
Me either. Well, yeah.
That's all right. We understand your point. You're opposed to it, and you don't like it close to your home, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, without repeating everything that everybody else has said, I'll ask if there's anybody else with little children that would like to speak and say something different than has already been said. Hearing none.
Nobody else for me to drive one speaking. We can move on.
I will start with
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really do appreciate the courtesy that you gave our residents.
your name again.
Again, Attorney Dom Strafalo. I'm the chairman of the Housing Authority, City of Danbury. And I'll say that as an abutting property owner, we are probably affected by this transfer station more than anybody else. Building to building, I believe it's been represented that we are 260 feet, our building to building, from this transfer station to our closest building. But we do abut the property. And we have a number of concerns. If you look at Exhibit R that the applicant has handed in tonight, if you look at the doors, where the access doors where the trucks come in, they face Eden Drive housing complex. And when you think about 260 feet, it's less than a football field. It's very close to our property. When the trucks are pulling in, they're going to be pulling in closer to the building than 260 feet. So at that point, you're probably with a 53-foot trailer, probably less than 210 feet away from our property, from our closest building. And we have a number of concerns. One is the noise. I mean, there's going to be noise. I know there was an expert here tonight that talked about individual noises, but when you have a cumulative effect of noises, these noises, there's going to be payloaders, the doors are going to be open, trucks are going to be queued up on the property. There'll be a cumulative effect, and I know that there's going to be some representations made that there's a buffer in between, but a lot of times the trees in there, but the leaves come down on those trees during the winter months. The noise will be greatly increased during those months. So, we have a number of, one of the things I haven't heard addressed at all tonight is all the trucks that are queued up and closer to our properties. There's a lot of diesel fumes coming out from those trucks. Where are those fumes going? They're 200 feet, less than a football, 65 yards away from our properties. When those trucks are stacked up, 260, 240 trips per day, I'm not sure exactly the count, but those diesel fumes are going to go somewhere. They're going to go to our property, 65 yards away. It's very close to our property, and that's going to have a detrimental effect on our properties. We've got odor. Your commissioners tonight, you've asked some very pointed, tough questions about odor. Will it escape the property? Will it migrate to other properties? You've asked some very direct questions. You haven't gotten direct responses. In fact, I would submit to you that the responses you've gotten were non-responsive. They didn't say, no odor will go onto your property, will migrate away from this transfer station. They can't say that to you because there's no guarantees. They can't tell you there's not going to be any odor migrating from the property. They can't tell you there's going to be no noise migrating from the property and affecting detrimentally the health, safety, and welfare of the general area. They can't do that because they can't guarantee it. And I don't blame them. They can't guarantee it. No one wants a finger pointed back at them 3 years from now when there are detrimental effects. So, I submit to you again that not only do we have noise pollution, diesel fumes, odor, but vermin. What other kind? There's so many environmental pollutants that come out of a transfer station, and I have respect for the experts they brought. I know that they're going to do some things to minimize the impact of the environmental pollution, but I can tell you that, let's use some common sense. It's not going to be no impact. There is going to be an impact. And the diesel fumes alone migrating to our property will cause sickness. It will cause a headache. You'll hear trucks backing up. The decibel levels will be higher, I believe, from a cumulative effect, rather than if you can't take them individually, you have to look at the cumulative effect. So this commission is charged with granting this application or denying this application, and the basis that you have to grant or deny it is, will it emit noise, smoke, odor, other conditions that will create a nuisance and have a detrimental effect on adjacent properties. There's no testimony tonight that guarantees it won't. So I believe it will have a detrimental effect to our properties. Is it compatible with the character of the neighborhood? Well, I can't see how a transfer station is compatible with a residential neighborhood. I don't want to see our tenants experimented on with this technology. I don't believe that this applicant can guarantee there won't be a detrimental effect. It clearly is not consistent with the character of the neighborhood. And that's what your commission has to decide this evening. And I speak from the Housing Authority in the City of Danbury. We do oppose this application, and we ask that you deny it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's on to the next person.
Hi, I'm Floyd Banks. I'm President, Citywide Public Housing Resident Council. I'm also here opposing this transfer station. A lot of the things I have written down have probably been out. So what I will do is I'll leave a copy of this and I'll just go over some of them for the record.
Fine, thank you.
That way it won't take up a lot of time. But I'll just give out a couple of the items on here, and then I'll let the planning commission members look at this at your convenience. Now, one thing I don't know if anybody's brought up, but if this transfer station is approved, and then in the future, if it's ever closed down, has anybody asked how many years after the transfer station is closed down will the groundwater be polluted? And if so, how long will that ever clear up? Also, another thing, the doctor from Danbury Hospital mentioned some health problems, possibly causing cancer lung problems. Does this suggest an independent panel needs to study this prior to either approval or not by this commission? So what I'm going to do, seeing I left a copy of this for the members, I'm just going to reiterate that I am opposed to this, and I'm here also as the President Resident Council. I'm also here to back up the residents of Eden Drive and all the other residents of Danbury. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
just for the record, Exhibit Y. Submitted by
yes,
Mr.
yes, I
Banks.
got it.
Good evening. I'm Carolyn Sistrunk, Executive Director of the Housing Authority. Before I make brief remarks in opposition to this application, I'd like all of the residents from Eden Drive who are here tonight who probably need to leave because they have little ones, please stand so we can show who is in the audience present for Eden Drive in opposition to the application. Thank you. I just want to provide briefly context for this particular property, Eden Drive. First of all, it has about 55 families. There's 60 units. And in the early 60s, early 70s, the city of Danbury, along with the Housing Authority then, was looking for a site where they could have larger bedrooms for family-sized, large families in Danbury, affordable housing units. There are a number of sites that were examined, and right, wrong, or indifferent, we are where we are. But what we have there are mainly 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. There's about 180 persons living there. Of them, 88 of them are children. So there's a large number of children between the age of 0 and 18 years of age. Mostly female, mostly Latino, and almost 60% making less than $45,000 a year. In short, this property does serve the city of Danbury in terms of providing affordable housing opportunity for large families that require assistance at a time in their lives. There is no doubt that there are some questions about the impact of this particular application. I will not enumerate all of the issues that are there, but simply say, as the executive director, I have an obligation to protect the families, to make sure that they are aware of what the impact may be, so that they can have their voices on the record and they can show you who they are and their concerns here tonight in their own way. Thank you very much.
Now, next person, attorney, forget your name.
Not an attorney.
Oh, okay, but you are
I'll take the role.
You're representing a number of residents. I know you told me that before the meeting.
Yes, I am. Good evening, members of the board. I would also like Sam Bird, 23 Faith Lane, Woodland Hills, member of the Board of Directors. Although somebody did ask a group of individuals to stand, I was hoping to also have permission to ask everybody who's in this room who is opposed to the transfer station to stand, because many will not be speaking, but they should at least be seen as opposed. Is it okay if we ask? So,
All right, thank you very much.
thank you very much.
You know that it's most of the
What I'd like to do is enter into the record some health documents that one of our residents compiled. I don't, are you next to Y or Z? So I'd just as soon enter those rather than read them. We will also have one of our residents comment on carbon filters, negative airflow. That individual will comment after myself. We have another resident who will share a position letter about the transfer station, and whoever else from our community will speak, I welcome them, of course. What I would like to do is present to you via rhetorical questions in order to pinpoint those things that I feel are a summary of some of the things that have gone on in the last couple of weeks. Although they'll be rhetorical to you, I'm going to take the liberty to answer them myself on behalf of some of the comments that I have heard from those people who are opposed to the transfer station. So if I may begin. Will an additional waste transfer station in the location being suggested have a positive impact for the residents in this area of Danbury? No. Has the petitioning party for the waste transfer station demonstrated with backup and documentation the need for such a facility in the location requested? No. Is there presently a waste transfer station in the vicinity of the proposed waste transfer station? Yes. Is it within 2 miles of the proposed waste transfer station? Yes. Is the existing waste transfer station running at or near capacity? No. Not that this is necessary at this time, but can the existing waste transfer facility handle the majority of the maximum capacity of the proposed facility? And the answer is yes, in my opinion. Does Danbury, and specifically the 4th Ward, need an additional waste transfer station to handle the refuse that is building up in the 4th Ward and the remainder of Danbury? No. Have many new condominiums been built in the area that is in the general proximity to the proposed station? Yes. Is there a housing authority complex in very close proximity to the proposed transfer station? Yes. Has the housing authority come out in opposition to the proposed location for the waste transfer station? Yes. Has residential traffic increased substantially on Plumtrees Road in the last number of years? Yes. Is this consistent with the town traffic engineer, Mr. Abdul Mohammed's report on MSW Associates' proposal for a waste transfer station dated January 10, 2008? Yes. Have there been numerous automobile accidents on this road? Yes. Does Mr. Mohammed's report support and quantify this fact? Yes. Will the traffic increase on Plumtrees Road and consequently increase the potential for more accidents? Yes. Was this increase in traffic on Plumtrees Road substantiated by Mr. Mohammed's report? Yes. Will this increase in truck traffic create a potential not only for accidents, but for more serious accidents? Yes. Will Newtown Road, as it intersects with Plumtrees Road, experience an increased vehicle traffic beyond what it has been designed for? Yes. Is there also a possibility for increased truck traffic on proximity roads such as the steep and windy Shelter Rock Road? Yes. Was this brought forward in Mr. Mohammed's report? Yes. Will trash be brought into the Danbury area from other towns? Yes. Is this a positive prospect for Danbury residents, especially in the vicinity of the proposed station? No. Are the studies presented by Mr. Putnam's group statistical in nature, but not pragmatic with regard to the residents? Yes. Would each member of Mr. Putnam's group want to live with their families in the nearby vicinity of the proposed facility? I have a qualified no here, qualified in that the only member of the Putnam group who was asked this question was Mr. Putnam himself at the meeting he called, and he said no. Have we heard much statistical rhetoric about noise? Yes. In reality, will the noise emanating from this proposed waste transfer station result in more noise from the area in question than there is now? Yes. Is this borne out in Mr. Mohammed's analysis of noise and vibration caused by such transfer stations? Yes. Will particulate matter in the air emanating from the waste that is being handled at this station increase? Yes. Is this increase in particulate potentially hazardous, especially for those individuals with certain pre-existing conditions? Yes. Will truck engine fumes that are potentially a health risk increase in the area? Yes. Did Mr. Mohammed's report clearly refer to increased emissions by trucks? Yes. Mr. Mohammed, the town traffic engineer, made the following statement in his report. We are concerned regarding the negative impact on quality of life for those residents within close proximity of the facility, as well as along its access routes in terms of noise, vibration, emissions that would be generated by the truck traffic. Have the number of residents speaking in favor of this facility and not members of the Putnam team been existent at these meetings? No. Have you been informed by the residents, our councilman, state representative, that we are all opposed to the building of Mr. Putnam's waste transfer station? Yes. Has the mayor made statements that indicate his opposition to this proposal? Yes. I will end once again on behalf of all those residents who are opposed to the building of a waste transfer station on Plumtrees Road by respectfully requesting that the Planning Commission deny the petition to build a waste transfer station on Plumtrees Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. And I think that Mr. Byrd has pretty much stated all the reasons for opposing this that I can think of. Therefore, I would invite anybody else to come up here to speak, but please be brief and do not repeat.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Fuentes. I live in the Autumn Ridge condominiums on Shelter Rock Road. I am in opposition of Mr. Putnam's proposal for a waste transfer station. Stating the obvious, traffic, pollutants. One of the things that was not brought up that a fellow resident brought up was the water system. What's going to happen to the water waste that comes from Putnam? Where does it go? It is right next to our water treatment system at Danbury. Other areas besides property value, quality of life, health, that have all been mentioned. There's a lot of questions with all of Mr. Putnam's experts before. When the gentleman who spoke about the noise, I wondered, does the pitch of the items that are being crushed change in the decibel level? What is the probability that all machines and crushers are operated at once? How long do they run? Studies of all variables being constant, what is the true final decibel noise level? That was never addressed. including the roll-off of the waste. Those also have to be factored in. Were they saying that all the doors will always be shut? I find that difficult to believe. Those doors will be open. As far as the traffic on Shelter Rock Road and Plum Trees, the gentleman had said that some of the areas that will be bringing their waste to Mr. Putnam's proposed location will be coming from Bethel. The quickest way to get to Bethel is Route 53 to Shelter Rock Road. That's going to be quite dangerous going up and down those hills. Additionally, we always talked about the odor bacteria. We also have to consider any bacteria that enters into our water system. That has not been addressed. That is something that we all need to be concerned about. Additionally, the gentleman who came up with the many systems in place for the air pollution, he talked about the charcoal filters. I have a question. If those filters get clogged, is there a warning system? Who is responsible for changing that? Or is that just done by the number of hours that the machine is run? Additionally, we talked about that the material that would be brought to Mr. Putnam's proposed location is demolition and construction debris. We all know that sometimes things like lead and or asbestos could get in there. What are the fail-safes about getting those things into this proposed location? How does he propose to keep that away from our families? Additionally, the gentleman spoke about economics and the population increase. I may have gotten my numbers wrong. It wasn't very clearly stated in the microphone, but according to my calculations, that's only a 7.4% increase in population. That does not mean the amount of garbage that he said would be increased. I would challenge that and like to get more information. And we also I'd like to remind people something that I never thought when I learned growing up would be something that I can now relate to, and that's the law of diffusion. And bottom line is an area of greater concentration will always go to an area of lesser concentration. If the greater concentration resides at the proposed location on Plum Trees Road, it is going to migrate up. And the way that the winds are blowing, they will be coming up Shelter Rock Road and Eden Drive. So again, I ask you to please oppose this proposal. Thank you.
Now, another person, Mr. Bird, I think has spoken.
No.
Yes, go ahead, come forward.
Hello, my name is Michael Meyer. I'm also a resident of Woodland Hills, 26 Woodcrest Drive. I'm going to be entering into the record a position paper put together by another one of our residents who could not be here tonight. But to summarize a few of the points here, first regarding odor control. We'd like to point out a study that was put together for the Department of Sanitation for the City of New York by Henningsen, Durham, Richardson Architectural Engineers. One of their recommendations, based on a study of 24 transfer stations, regarding air changes per hour, was to increase the minimum requirements from the current 6 air changes per hour to 8 to 12 air changes per hour. The level that Mr. Putnam has requested or has designed was 3 air changes per hour. That puts him well below the current standards for the city and only at 25% of what this study has put together or has recommended. Regarding noise, there's been little that the applicant has put together that addresses how we control the noise from queuing vehicles, other than to rely on the assertions that the noise would not exceed the background noise. One thing I'd like to note is that the background noise levels that were recorded were between 10 and 11 a.m. The transfer station will be opening at 6, when the background noise levels should be significantly lower than they are at 10 a.m. Therefore, as trucks are pulling in, backing up, doors are opening, that's going to have a much different level have much different impact on people as they are still sleeping, and the background noise of the area is much less. Regarding siting, the requirements for the City of New York for a transfer station of this nature requires at least a minimum of 400 feet distance between the transfer station and the nearest residential area. Our question to the committee is, if that's required for New York, why is the City of Danbury willing to allow 160 feet between a transfer station and the nearest residential area? We feel they're doing a disservice to the citizens here. Another area regarding enforcement. What will be done to enforce the requirements and what the applicant has suggested that he will be doing regarding the odor control and all of the other things to make sure that this is maintained. We have not been able to find any of the City of Danbury's inspection regime for the current existing transfer station, and we'd want to know what would be done to make sure that everything is being monitored for the new transfer station if this were approved. So before, just to summarize some of our earlier submissions, we believe that the proposal is not compatible with the evolving character of the neighborhood, and it's a threat to our quality of lives and property values. We believe the proposal will create conditions adversely affecting traffic safety and will cause undue congestion. Third, we believe the operation of the facility will jeopardize public health and safety. This project gives every appearance that it is not a proper fit for the area or for the city. Until these public hearings, there has been no public participation in the siting decision as advised by the EPA. The proposed site is 1/8 the size cited by the EPA for a 500-ton per day plant. The location is less than half the distance from residences than is required by the City of New York. The air handling system is 1/4 of the capacity considered appropriate by the City of New York. There's no real plan to adequately address the impact of 280 trucks per day on a residential community. There's been no review by the Danbury Department of Health. The environmental impact review did not consider the effects of noise, air pollution, or microbes. Finally, the City of Danbury has no need for this facility. They had an expert who mentioned that it brings an economic value to the city of $8,500 per year, which I personally feel is, for a city of this size, is not a benefit. Further, that benefit did not factor into account the value of the decrease in our property values and the effect that will have on the city. In addition, it will impair our quality of life and potentially harm the health of some of our citizens. Once again, we urge you to deny the requested special exemption, and I'm going to enter this into the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
questions? Here, Mr. Jensen.
Exhibit AA.
Now, yes.
My name is Bobby Gardner. I'm the pastor of the Victory Christian Center Church over on Eden Drive. I come in opposing the project because I watched this neighborhood over the years. We bought property at 1992, and we've seen a change in the community. I've seen new homes go up. I've seen the people just began to come out and just enjoy that neighborhood more. When I first came there, they wouldn't even deliver pizza. That's how bad the neighborhood was. But since development, I've seen the people morale go up. And now someone need to go out there and smell the sewer treatment plant. Even now, that's terrible in summertime. So if you are in that area, we're trying to get used to that. And to have another situation there, we rejoiced when the dump closed, and that was a great thing. So we oppose of this project coming up because we don't need any more orders. Just for the people alone, I wouldn't want them to have to go through another smell of garbage ever again. So we oppose that on behalf of the church, and we hope that you will consider doing likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, is there others? Yes, Gentlemen,
My name's Gary Rosenfeld. I'm a resident of 8 Faith Lane in Woodland Hills. I really have just a couple of real quick things. I invite any one of you to, I'm an oral surgeon, and I'm happy to have any one of you come to my office. Okay, fine. Any one of these people can come to my office and I'll put the sterilizer on and I'll push the green button, and when the light comes on, I'll assume the instruments are sterile. And that's one way to make some assumptions. But we have tests that you put in the sterilizer to make sure that what you actually think you're sterilizing, you truly are sterilizing. So the point that the chairperson made before, if you're going to have waste and you have all the lights and the bells and whistles and the carbon filters and the UV lights, that's wonderful. But unless you have a test to see that it truly is effective, there's no real significance to that. Number two, the expert on bacteria and all that. Just out of curiosity, I'm curious if you've ever heard of the term prion. Prion is a relatively new term in medicine, and they're submicroscopic particles that are not necessarily killed by the standard regimen. Matter of fact, if you look into mad cow disease, for instance, mad cow disease is thought to not be from a virus, not be from bacteria. It's thought to be from what's called a prion. And it's very hard to kill prions. And I think that, I can't tell you what's in garbage. I don't know, honestly. But again, we're building something in our neighborhood. And I would just assume know everything about it than to hastily move forward into something that we don't know, especially since it's a new thing in medicine. If you're going to run a study on economics, I would also suggest that you run a study on the economics, how it affects the house values in the neighborhood. To run a study on the economics to the city of Danbury or to one person's wallet is great, but there's a lot of people now that live there. So you run an economic study, run it for those that live in the area as well. Let's look at the whole picture. And just for all the data and tables and everything else that were shown, anybody that knows anything about science knows that you can take data, massage it, manipulate it, and make it read basically whatever picture you want it to read. So while these studies, I'm sure, were great on the decibel levels and what we anticipate this and anticipate that, honestly, it doesn't wash. I mean, I could get other experts on sound to come up here and dispute every single one of those claims. So basically, you can massage data however you want. Anybody that knows anything about science knows that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. This gentleman in the front row who is going to...
You ready? Okay, let me pass these out. These are, here. He's going to skim this, but this is what he's going to show you over there. Exhibit BB?
Yes. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Exhibit BB.
Exhibit BB.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Cortez White. I'm the chairman of the Legal Redress Committee of the Greater Danbury Area Chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. First of all, let me thank you, each of you, for the diligence given the proposal or application before you. The NAACP opposes the applicant's plan. We do believe that the concern here is that of the cumulative impact of environmental clustering. And today, I will take you through a couple of slides that have been prepared. We're going to skim the presentation. I'd like to, starting with page 1, or slide 1, and then going to 3, I want to indicate that zoning that makes use of relatively inexpensive land must not be presumed to prevent significant environmental consequences to adjacent low-income and minority communities. prior to MSW, the burdens abutting Eaton Drive, the Eaton Drive community are negative air quality, noise. I repeat this because there was no mention of the issue of gear shifting, trucks, air brakes. Vectors have been mentioned as well as the odors. Of course, we're concerned that I'm at slide 7. We're concerned with the problems that are brought into the community via the tractor trailers. At Exhibit 8, the effects of disproportionate exposure have been documented in many instances in many areas of the country by opponents to what we call by proponents of environmental justice. They've been mentioned before. Real briefly, reduction in lung development amongst their children, increased risk of developing asthma, respiratory illness, and heart disease, and increased incidence of school absenteeism. These at slide, sure. Thank you. At slide 12, we simply restate, we're looking at the truck vehicle traffic here, and I'd just like to interject that the applicant has no control over those haulers. The vehicles that move in, the diesel trucks, the fine particle soot, the high idles for inclined access, the number of days of operation, all impact the quality of life. Environmental justice should be concerned with who should be concerned. I'm at slide 17. And who should be concerned? If the planned operation will disproportionately affect 60 underserved households in our community, everyone needs to be concerned. Who is concerned? The United States EPA is concerned. The Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection is concerned. EPA and Connecticut DEP recommend that responsibility of hosting undesirable land uses be scattered rather than clustered in any area that has a relatively high percentage of disadvantaged residents. The policy of the Connecticut DEP is that no segment of the population should bear a disproportionate share of the risk or consequences of environmental pollution. At slide 20, the question that has been posed is a waste transfer station needed? We look at the Connecticut General Statutes 22A 259, subsection 8, which requires the Connecticut Resource Recovery Authority to implement solid waste management services where necessary and desirable in accordance with the state waste management plan. In discussions with the Housatonic Resource Recovery Authority, they commented that the existing plan will not reach capacity until the year 2018. The Housatonic Resource Recovery Authority has multiple sites, none of which are at capacity. Who should be concerned? Municipal planning, of course, that's your role. To ensure that no single residential neighborhood is overburdened with undesirable land uses in compliance with Connecticut's solid waste management plan. And I emphasize it's only a plan. Slide 23, the fight for environmental justice is a national platform for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It basically says that in spite of governmental protective laws, people of color bear, back one please. People of color bear the health burden of polluted water and air that is foul and contaminated. Thank you very much. References are included in the document. A copy is provided for the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, sir, standing over there, I give you this gentleman, Mr. McGee.
Good evening. My name is Barry O'Connor. I live on Shelter Rock Road. I'm president of Autumn Ridge Condominium Association and president of Somerset Condominium Association. I really want to say that we have had several meetings with our owners. There are 110 owners in households in Somerset, and there are 75 in Autumn Ridge. We've discussed this at length. Everyone to a man, or person, excuse me, have decided that they want to vote against this. I had a long list of things I was going to read out, but I think a lot of other people more eloquent than myself have gone through them. The one point I'd like to make is Eden Drive and the Shelter Rock Road have a large number of homes. There are roughly around 1,000 condominiums on Shelter Rock Road, and not counting the single-family homes, which will bump it up to about 1,200. So having the transfer station where it is, I've lived on Shelter Rock Road for 25 years. We've had significant impacts from the dump and all the work that's been doing, the terrible odors that were coming from the dump. We worked with the mayor very closely. He came to our board of directors meeting. We worked hand in hand to try and get that addressed. I think it's a disproportionate burden on the people who live on Shelter Rock Road and also Eden Drive. So I would like to make sure, for the record, everyone understands that the board of directors from Somerset and Autumn Ridge vote against it, and would ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman over there.
Good evening. My name is Ivan Alsame. I just want to make a quick note here. I'm sorry?
How does this spell you?
I-V-O-N, Ivan. Alsame, A-L-C-I-M-E. I just want to make a quick note here. I want to say that we have qualified people in the city of Danbury to serve us residents. I find it very insulting for these gentlemen here, I don't know if you read that statement, when he said that one of our engineers pretty much have some questions for him. And he made a statement about something like, he wasn't like licensed. He doesn't think that the gentleman was qualified.
Speaking, Mr. Benson,
right. He doesn't think that the gentleman was qualified to, make the questions that he did. So therefore, he brought these are experts. And I just want to say that the people who serve us here in the city, they are great people. They are there to protect us as residents, and their concerns are very valid. And the statement that they made, to me, is very insulting. And please, you're not going to allow someone to come in your house and to insult you, especially when you try to protect your children. Please don't make a note of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, there's one more person right there, this lady, and then another person in the back, and somebody moving over there to try to get you all.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Edie Collins, and I live at 56 Faith Lane in Woodland Hills. You have already heard all of the reasons that the residents of the 4th Ward are against Mr. Putnam's waste transfer station proposal. So out of consideration for this hearing, I will not be repetitive. The waste transfer station is a bad fit for the entire 4th Ward. It is a bad fit within the zoned industrial community, and it is a bad fit in the residential area. It will create a serious quality of life problem in both areas. There is a strong need to balance the commercial interests with the thousands of people living next to this industrial zone. The Shelter Rock neighborhood is among the highest housing density in the city of Danbury. Noting that, I am asking the Planning Commission to vote against the application for the waste transfer station. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, there's somebody else reading the names here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Exhibit CC.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I Rhonda Delitas. I live on Shelter Rock Road. I don't want to reiterate a lot of what you've heard already. It is getting late. I come here as the face of a person who has had a car accident on Plum Trees Road. At the time of the accident, I had my son and my dog in the car. I know that statistically most accidents happen at least a mile from where you live or within a mile of where you live, and the traffic flow is one of my concerns as far as where this transfer station is going to or is proposed to be. Additionally, I find it a huge embarrassment to give people directions to my home, and I purposefully don't take them down Plum Trees Road because I find it to be a pretty abysmal street to have to look at. So I think that this would be another eyesore on a street that already has enough things not so pleasant to look at or smell. And those are my statements. Thank you.
Thank you. Now,
good evening, everyone. My name is Jean Smith. I reside in Autumn Ridge Condominium. I just wanted to reiterate, I have a granddaughter who has some cardiac issues, also asthma. I have cardiac issues and asthma, and I find this to be a very frightening thing for adults and children, especially the little children. The gentleman who spoke about the protection for odors getting into the air or any of the other things that could get into the air that could be detrimental to our health was not going to give any assurances that we would be protected from these. And I just implore upon you people to please not allow this to go through for the sake of everyone in our area and especially for all our children. And I thank you very much for your time.
thank you. Now, is there anybody else in opposition? There's the gentleman back here, this gentleman here, you come forward with it.
For the record, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, Tom Sadi. I live at 24 Tobin's Court and I'm about a 20-year resident of the Shelter Rock area. I am one of the council persons in the 4th Ward along with John Esposito. I'm not here as a council person or as a former member of some of our land use commissions, but because my wife and I plan to make our lives and raise our family in the Shelter Rock area, right across from Shelter Rock Elementary School. So I have a vested interest, I have a personal interest in the neighborhood beyond representing my constituents who are doing very well representing themselves. We've heard a lot of evidence this evening. We've heard it over the last 2 public hearings and submissions in the record. I won't go over the details, but I'd like to put it in context. And despite what Attorney Kava says, not only may you consider the concerns of residents, which he improperly defines as fears and tries to say they're not substantiated, but they're concerns. You must consider their concerns so long as their concerns are based on the evidence that's in the record. And there is substantial evidence in the record. And even if that evidence is contradicted by other evidence, you have the authority and the discretion to sift through that based on what your counsel will tell you are the standards of review and determine what is the best decision in light of all the evidence, even though there's going to be a lot of contradictory evidence in the record. The applicant's lawyers and engineers are here to pass this application. That's their charge. Or to build a record for an appeal. That's their other charge, as zealous advocates, from the attorney standpoint. On the other hand, your staff are your advisors. City staff are to present the unbiased view and determination based on their profession and expertise. And as a former member of land use commissions, I've had times when staff have contradicted what the Land Use Commission feels and have supported the applicant. So it's not a stacked game where city staff people simply deny and feed information, unbalanced information or biased information to a Land Use Commission. Mr. Chairman pointed out the financial issue as being a red herring. It's really not before you. But this area, Plum Trees Road, and the neighborhood has changed. People have talked about a lot of new homes being built up there, so I won't go into that. But let me walk you through a little bit as a 20-some-odd-year resident of the area. At one time, we had an open landfill with open fires. We had significant amounts of sulfur and other odors escaping from it, permeating the neighborhood to a point where I couldn't keep my windows open, and members of my family who suffered from bronchial problems had trouble breathing. That's gone. That's capped. That's cleaned up. It's much better. Some residents who have been here for a short period of time don't remember at times how bad it was. At one time, we had an emission station. with significant traffic on the road, where cars would stack up and you'd have to go around them, causing problems. That's gone. At one time, we had a developer proposing to build a septic sludge fertilizer processing facility in the area where Kenosha Construction is. That was denied. Kenosha Construction is there, has been mentioned in the record. It's much more neighborhood friendly. The state is currently funding a study to study the odor problems at the wastewater treatment facility and to come up with solutions to address that. The big wood pile, which was once on Plum Trees Road after several of the hurricanes we had in the early 2000s, is gone and processed. The vermin are gone from that. The city has proposed a bond package, which will include funds to improve the area on Plum Trees Road, including the old drying beds from the old sewage treatment facility. This neighborhood has changed. It's not changed just because there's significantly more residential homes in the area, but it has improved. So let's not go backwards. Let's go forward. Let's see what we can do in the area rather than what was done in the past and repeat some of the failures of the past. With regard to some specific issues, with regard to noise, I just want to address two things that raise my concern. The applicant's attorney and others keep saying that you don't have the authority, you can't regulate certain things which are within federal purview. The trucks that they're moving, certain noise, the OSHA requirements for backup beepers. Well, that's true. But you do have the authority, based on special exception and case law, to deny an application on the overall impact. You can't go in and regulate the noise specifically, but you can deny an application based on its general impact, so long as it meets the parameters set out in the law. So that's, avoid those red herrings, and I'm sure your counsel will tell you about that. With regard to another noise issue, I think it was Mr. Smartland, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name. At the January meeting, he had mentioned, and I'm not sure if he mentioned it clearly at this meeting, that he stated that the background noise at Eden Drive would be 53 dBA, but that the backup signals would be 65 dBA at Eden Drive, and that there is an exponential increase in the dBAs. I think it's maybe 100% per 10 dBAs. I'm not sure, I'm not the expert. But that is a significant increase in those beeping noises, as underscored by another residents that that's going to be happening when you probably have lower amounts of background noise going on. Notwithstanding the pledge that's been made that this is potentially a 500-ton facility, which is under the purview of the DEP to permit or not permit, keep in mind, someone else can apply for an extension of that permit or to increase the tonnage, and that guarantee is not something that you can hold an applicant to. But that begs another question. If you can't legally bind them to a statement made here that's 500 tons per day, I have another concern, and that may be for your corporation counsel to address, is can an individual purchase an abutting lot, consolidate the properties, and try to extend rights on one property into another? I don't know the answer to that, but that's something I think that should be addressed. Because there is a move in some towns in Connecticut for individuals who own land with deeded water rights to try to consolidate those lands with other lands and then to extend those deeded rights to the formerly separate lots. That's a big concern for me. I'm sure that the applicant's representatives in rebuttal, which they have every right to do, will address what's been said by the opponents. But the one thing I would ask this commission is to be very careful that if any new evidence is presented into the record, either in rebuttal or if the applicant intends to submit new documentary evidence to the commission, that it's well-established law that both proponents and applicants must have the opportunity to comment on any new evidence entered into the record. And if that opportunity is denied them, then that evidence should not be considered. So I'd ask the commission that if new evidence comes in, either we stay here until rebuttals go back and forth and we've exhausted the time, or that the applicant voluntarily authorize a continuance of the public hearing, which I don't think anybody wants, but we should have an opportunity to rebut any new evidence into the record. Based on those concerns and what you've heard tonight, I would respectfully ask this commission, based on the evidence in the record, to deny this application. I thank you for your time and your patience.
There's a gentleman.
Hi, Carlos Mudio, 507 Sienna Drive. I'm one of the board members from the Arlington Woods community. Been here for the last few meetings, have submitted our own evidence regarding our opposition to the applicant's transfer station. Really, in a nutshell, we've seen a number of still pictures and artist depictions around how these waste transfer stations are supposed to be designed and operated. I would encourage the commission to really just take a few minutes, go online, simply go to youtube.com and do a search on waste transfer station. And I think what you'll find there is really how these waste transfer stations operate in practice. You will see the bay doors in an open position throughout the videos. You will see the trash being dumped out onto the floor, and when the trash gets stuck into the truck just backing up and reversing and going forward, trying to force the trash out, which of course leads to all the trash getting stuck to the tires and the wheels of the trucks. We're then going to exit the facility and drive through our residential neighborhood, and again, just start to increase the waste in the area. We've submitted in earlier sessions evidence as to how the community is trying to work with the mayor's office regarding the existing odor concerns and how we've been able to find a good resolution to that. Furthermore, when we're talking about the noise, the applicant had submitted in previous submissions some of the findings around background noise, which exceed the noise ordinances of the city of Danbury. Now, we should not lose sight of the fact that part of that background noise is a place of business that the applicant already owns and controls. So to me, you start building a track record around background noise in excess of the city of Danbury noise ordinances by the applicant in an existing facility. Don't really see a convincing case over how we have the assurance that a new facility is going to now adhere to existing noise ordinances. So again, it just doesn't add up to me logically. But really the message again is the Arlington Woods community is opposed to this application. Take the time to go into YouTube and take a look at some of these videos. It speaks volumes over some artist depiction and caricatures on some big boards here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, is there anybody else wishing to speak in opposition?
Janice Reed, 27 Valley View Drive. I've lived in the neighborhood for 22 years. I don't live in Woodland Hills. I don't live in Arlington. And the words "no odor" in the fourth ward mean absolutely nothing to me. I oppose this transfer station. I have a daughter who is a cancer survivor. I'm lucky enough to have an electrostatic precipitator in my house, but she does not live in a bubble and must go outside. The one thing that I have not heard addressed is where are the trucks going to wait? Now, we all know the hours of the transfer station that are being opposed, but if you're going to tell me that they're going to stay within those confines, I doubt that. Who's going to come early? Where are they going to wait? Who's going to get there after it closes? Where are they going to wait? I have a feeling somebody coming a distance farther than right around the general area is going to find some pocket somewhere around so that they can be first in line the next day. This is totally unacceptable, and I oppose the station. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all of the people in opposition? Have we heard everybody? One person out there?
My name is Mark Guan. I live on Sienna Drive. My name is Mark Guan. I live on Sienna Drive. Just want to tell a story that March 2007, I was in Asia on a business trip. It was a snowy day in Danbury. And my wife was driving on a curve, and the car was hit from behind by a truck. The police officer was very nice. He said the truck driver's insurance should pay everything. Well, my wife said, she called me, she said, I don't want to drive. But she had to go to work. I was away from home, thousands of miles. And my company makes so much money that my company was horried by Wall Street Journal in January. They say my company saved the American economy. My company is IBM. And I believe the operation cost of our department total so much more money than Mr. Putnam's whole property, money, whatever in total. Well, I was traveling thousands of miles away, contributing to our economy. My wife was hit from behind by a truck. I don't think this is fair. That's a true story in March. And my wife still refused to drive on Plumtree Road. It's on that curve, Plumtree Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I think we've heard all the opposition. I think I'm going to have a 5-minute recess before we have a rebuttal. Anybody else to speak to opposition? Anybody else to speak to opposition? That's 3. Okay. 5-minute recess.